What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. We are back at it with our regular Monday show. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. Once again, we had a very busy week on the 10-7 MMA show, creating tons of content. And wow, what a fight, or what a fight card at 310. I know it's been getting some mixed reviews, and we're going to talk about all of that today. I do think a lot of the criticism of the card, I think it's kind of unfounded. Even Dana White didn't seem so impressed, I guess, with the co-main event. But I did not agree with that. I love the co-main event. That was actually my favorite fight of the night. But there is a ton to talk about today, not to mention a brand new announcement that was made about UFC 312, including your boy, Sean Strickland, which we're going to get to later in the show. But Justin, first things first, I know I did that post show. You were almost on, but then I know you had to go. No worries.
I had to hang up, man, dude. I was like, you know what? I can't keep my sentence. I'll be straight with you guys, all listeners watching. I was fucked up. I was so high. Like,
don't worry about
it. I'm gonna get this together.
Yeah.
And then like you went live, and I'm like, I'm really nervous, and I ended it, and I texted you like, dude, I'm way too fucked up for this.
I think it was probably the right choice, and honestly, it's Saturday night, so like, what are you supposed to have on Saturday?
I do. Well, I had a lot going on Saturday night. I had a new roommate moving in. I had 25 dogs here, so there was a lot going on. I do want to do this post show, not for this show, but going forward on Saturdays. I do want to do that post show. I think it's a great thing. It's a great way for our viewers to interact more. We can discuss topics, and we'll just free form it. We're not going to have topics. We're going to just jump from fight to fight. I think it's a great idea. Unfortunately, I just dropped the ball. I just was way too stoned.
It was all good. It was an so just so you guys know, it was a very impromptu decision to go and do it. We talked about it earlier in the night, but it's Saturday night. Like, we didn't plan for it. I am pretty much completely sober nowadays, so it's not such a thing for me. But I mean, I get it. Back in the day, like, that was my night to go and get wild. So it is what it is. Anyways, thank you guys for joining. Tehran, what's up? Tehran was on the stream on Saturday. Let us know what you think about it, and yeah, let us know if you do want to see more of it. I know Western Mass Climber did leave a comment on the show saying, hey, he would love to see us even do a watch party. So we're gonna be getting all that together. By the way, I want to mention we are 3 subscribers away from hitting 500 subs. Now, that's a relatively minor achievement, I think, by most people's standards. When you just look at the magnitude of most channels on YouTube, even mine included, for my main business, we have over 100,000 subscribers. But every little
120,
step,
I think.
114. But every little step is a very, very important milestone. Also, I will say, despite the fact that we don't have that many subscribers, I mean, we have a lot of views per month. We have almost like 29,000 or 28,000 views in the last month, which is upticking tremendously. So even though our subscriber numbers don't seem that big, we are making progress. We are having a blast, and I think we're getting better and better in terms of our analysis and what we're talking about and the way we're able to break things down. So this has just been super fun. I think we're really getting going. And if you guys are watching for the first time today, if this is the first time you're joining us, make sure to click that subscribe button if you want to join along, and if you do appreciate our back and forth and our commentary. And what I always say to people when I describe the show is we have a confluence of the expertise from Justin James, professional mixed martial artist, fought 5 fights in the UFC, and just an amazing commentator, analyst, and coach when it comes to the game. And then hopefully I like to provide the fan perspective, and a lot of this show is me asking Justin questions, hopefully questions that other fans out there might want to know the answer to, as opposed to just me talking nonsense about, hey, this guy should have done that. I try to be really careful about that type of analysis where I'm stepping into the shoes of a fighter, because I've never been there before. I train for fun, but I've never actually had a professional fight. So anyways, that's kind of the gist of the show. But thank you guys so much for joining. And again, Tehran says he didn't care for UFC 310. He thought 309 was better. I can see you appreciating 309 better, but I thought 310, I don't know. I thought it was awesome, and we're going to get into all the fights right now. And
hey, one more thing. I had a big milestone this morning. Wrestling coach of mine, as you guys know, I commentated the Division I wrestling match, number 2 Iowa Hawkeyes versus Princeton, then Iowa Hawkeyes versus the Black Knights of Army. And it was on UFC Fight Pass, looked at by the Big Ten Network. Well, I had a coach from Michigan who was unaware of what I was doing, and he sent me, Army took one of my clips of me commentating their match just from the excitement, posted it on their thing, and one guy that was unknowingly watching recognized my voice, and he sent it to me this morning. So it was really cool. Black Knights of Army took one of my comments per se of me commentating one of their matches, posted it on their Instagram page. So I'm hoping the Big Ten Network sees it. They say, hey, this guy's legit, because that's one thing I pride myself on. I think you're a lot better at making the videos. I think you're an incredible video maker. The way you format your videos, and that's kind of where I lack. But right up in the hype, I think my strength is, just going off cue and going about, and Army liked it enough to where they shared it on their Instagram page. So huge milestone for me. Hopefully I gain some traction from it.
Heck yeah, amazing. Yeah, so if you guys haven't heard Justin commentate, you can also check him out this Saturday, via Fusion Fight League. So you can check it out via the Triller app. That's a fight promotion based in Montana. Justin and I are actually both going to Montana this Friday, and we're going to be co-commentating. So the same thing kind of that we do here, but we're going to be doing it live for fights. I've been talking to fighters last week and this week, and I love it's such a cool promotion because it's a lot of local guys. Also, there's a guy from Venezuela that's on the card that I talked to today. So there's also international fighters coming in, but you get to see people come up, what they're like at the beginning in their amateur career, at the beginning of their professional career. And guess who came up through this promotion? None other than one of the biggest stars in the sport, Sean O'Malley. I think he might be there this weekend too, because his guy, Ezra Elliott, is fighting on the card. So Sean O'Malley usually comes, but at a minimum, his head coach will, of course, be there. But anyways, you can check
Tim
out
Welch.
what's that? Tim Walsh, of course. Yep,
Tim
sorry.
Welch, yep.
And so he'll definitely be there for sure. So you can check us out at Fusion Fight League, and it's a blast. You get to say, hey, when this guy, because Ezra's going to the UFC very soon, so you can be like, hey, this guy is in the UFC. I remember when he was an amateur. I remember he was coming up. It's really fun. All right, let's get into the mix. Let's talk about this card. Now we're gonna start off here. Let's go to let's start at the top. Actually, okay, I have Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov as the first fight, even though it's not the main event. But this was my favorite fight, and I loved it, man. And I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why, but then I want to turn it over to you to get your thoughts, because I know a lot of people, Dana White included, wasn't so enthusiastic about this fight and the outcome of the fight. I think simply because there wasn't a finish, and this is the first time Shavkat hasn't gotten a finish. But I mean, look, man. He is fighting, I think, the best guy in the welterweight division other than himself. I think Ian Garry showed how amazingly skilled he is, how cerebral of a fighter he is, and he was being very cautious and very calculating, paying attention to the distance management, to Shavkat Rakhmonov really doing a tremendous job defending I mean, it was not a lot of actually double legs or single legs, but later, it was a lot of grappling, and I thought Ian Garry did an amazing job. So both of them were very calculated. I mean, so to me, the strategy, the game plan of both of the fighters is absolutely fascinating. And to watch Ian Garry, I think he figured out Shavkat by round 4 and 5 and was just crushing. I mean, I loved it. He almost got a submission, blown away. The entire fight was amazing. But Justin, I need to hear your thoughts.
Man, I tell you what, we're talking about two incredible strikers stepping toe to toe in the ring. It's funny because when you have these matchups, it's like, oh man, these guys are two great strikers. The winner of the fight typically goes to who's better at their secondary moves, their wrestling, their grappling. And I tell you what, I saw some incredible moments from both fighters. It's like Ian Garry would land a big right hand, and Shavkat be just winging one right back at him, man. It was tit for tat. And then the takedowns in round 4 and 5, and Ian Garry having that tight body lock, getting in that rear naked choke, giving all his effort because he needed to finish that fight going into the 5th round, or in the 5th round, as I thought he was down on the scorecards. So Huge hat off to Ian Garry, not giving up, always looking for the finish. But then you look at the opposite in the opposition, 19-0 now, Shavkat. This guy's the truth, man. He's the real deal. Ian Garry, I thought it was going to be a tough task. I actually thought Shavkat was going to come in here and steamroll Ian Garry a lot easier than he did. 49-48, or excuse me, 48-47 is as close as it can get besides a split decision. I saw both guys have a lot, but like you said, as the fight went on, I thought Ian Garry was figuring Shavkat out, man, and that's what great fighters do. Their game plan, every fighter has a great game plan coming in round 1, but making those small adjustments going into round 2, round 3, 4, and 5, that's what awesome and expert fighters do, is they make those small adjustments to come. And I thought Ian Garry was making the correct adjustments as the fight went on. Unfortunately, it was only a 5-round fight. Take that fight in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, we might have another winner on our hands here. But Ian Garry did a great job. Unfortunately, it just was a little bit too much, a little too late in the fight.
And not to make excuses on behalf of Ian Garry, and he never said this, so don't, this is not me quoting him or anything, but Ian Garry took the fight on short notice. I mean, I guess Shavkat did as well, right? They both had a change of opponents last minute, so we have to give both of them credit. But I do believe that if they face off again, which I believe they will, I think Ian Garry is going to have an even better game plan, or even more cerebral game plan, and I think he's going to pull it off. Now, one thing I did notice, Justin, so I thought I was paying attention to Ian Garry throughout the fight. He was doing a tremendous job, in my opinion, of beating up the league leg of Shavkat with both calf kicks, but he was also doing this really interesting technique. I don't know if there's a name for it. And I actually started doing it today when I was shadow boxing because I don't know what it's called. My coaches never showed, but like he was doing a front kick. It's kind of like the oblique side kick that John Jones throws, like downward pressure on the knee. But it's like a front teep, but he turns his foot at a 45-degree angle. I think he's doing that to maximize the surface area, so to make it a greater probability of making contact with with the position right above the knee. But he kept doing it, turning his foot and boom, kicking the top of Shavkat's knee. And you could see Shavkat really slowing down in the 4th and 5th round. What did you think of that game plan? And is my observation right? Was that exact? You know what I'm talking about with that kick?
Yeah, it's just an oblique kick with the lead leg. It's so don't overthink it. It's the same. It's just like think of a teep kick from lead leg to rear leg. You know, it's the same technique. You're just throwing it off your different legs. So yeah, if it's the technique I'm thinking of, yeah, it's just a lead leg oblique kick. Very good at slowing your opponent down. And another thing it's really good at is stopping your partner. So if your opponent has a lot of forward pressure and you're hitting this kick, when that kick lands, your opponent has to he can't just walk through it because he's going to have to adjust his weight to continue to move forward. So it's a great way to stick your partner in a position where he has to stop for a brief second and you can fire off. I thought the adjustment with the kicks as the fight went on, Ian Garry threw more and more kicks to the legs of Shavkat, and I really thought that was a difference maker. Again, going back to changing your game plan. I don't think he came into the fight anticipating to throw that many kicks, but as the fight went on, the more kicks he threw, the more success I felt he was having.
So what does this tell you? And we're going to talk about Shavkat and Bilal that, like, I'm sure you were dying laughing when you saw security stop Bilal. But we're going to talk about Shavkat in a second and that matchup going up. I've been looking at some surveys online. It's like 50-50 in terms of who people think will win that eventual title fight. But what does this tell you about Ian Garry? Are you hyped on him now? Do you think he's going to eventually 100% now be champion one day? Like, what are your thoughts?
You can never say someone is 100% going to be the champion, unfortunately, in this sport, because he might fucking get in a car accident on the way home and never be able to fight again, or get hurt in training, or, you know, a lot of times coming back from a loss is tough, man. The more, like, you know, fuck, man, if he loses his next fight, you know, I know the UFC wants to build him, but this is what I was concerned about. I always thought that Shavkat was going to win this fight, you know, former training partners. You know, watching Ian Garry in the fight lead up, I thought was really weird. I didn't really care for how buddy he was being. Hey, listen, I'm all about showing respect. You'll see me on my Instagram posting pictures of me and my opponent before the fight, but I'm not going out of my way to be, hey, buddy with him, hugging him 2-3 times, almost in an uncomfortable way. Like I said, that interaction I saw before, and you're like, oh, they're teammates and stuff, and that's great. But you look at Ian Garry's demeanor, like he's smiling, he's, hey, man, hey, and Shavkat's just straight face, hugs him back. Then he gives his teammate a hug, and he comes back to hug Shavkat again, and Shavkat's just kind of straight face. That told me he was in the zone, and that told me that, you know, Ian Garry, I don't know, man. I'm not going to say he wasn't in the zone because I thought he had a really good performance, a lot better performance than I thought he was going to have. But I don't know. Sometimes those interactions, when you start playing with your emotions before the fight, like, oh, we used to be buddies, and now, hey, it's the day before the fight, we're going to keep hugging and just tell how much we appreciate each other. I didn't see that in Shavkat at all. I saw that a lot in Ian Garry. So, do I think Ian Garry can still become the champion? Of course. This guy is an up-and-coming guy. He knew he was going to have a tough fight. Here's another thing. Ian Garry didn't think he won that fight, in my opinion. I don't care what he says. I don't know if says he feels he won the fight.
No, he hasn't. He's very much like, what can I just real quick say what he said in the post-fight press?
Yeah,
because I think it's important. He is totally in agreement that he lost, but he's saying, I don't feel like I lost, because he's like, I went out there, I performed the best I could, and I made him look human. Everybody was afraid of him. He couldn't finish me. I nearly finished him. So that's how he feels like he lost, but it was still all in all, like a positive performance.
See, you know, I think at this level, when you're fighting another guy that's undefeated, 18-0, and, you know, he was content with just going to decision. You know what I mean? He was happy with it. He felt like, although I lost, it didn't feel like a loss. I understand his circumstance where he's coming from, but a guy with that championship mindset, it doesn't matter if you're fighting Shavkat, Khabib. Like, when you lose, you fucking lose. You know what I mean? And that just tells me that there was something in the back of his head, and I might be wrong. All right. So you know, I know I'm going to get some great criticism for this point, but when guys lose and they're content with losing, which he was content with before the fight started, he already decided in his head, hey, if I lose a decision, that's a win for me. And I don't think that's the right mindset to have when you're going for UFC gold. When you're going against an undefeated fighter and you're undefeated, like, he was content with the loss. He was okay with the loss. I just don't think that's like, I thought I beat Charles Rosa when I fought him. I lost. I was not content with that loss. When I lost to Carl Deaton, I was not content with that loss regardless. And I just felt that he was a little too content with losing, which tells me before the fight, he already made it up in his head. Hey, if I go to decision, that's a win for me.
Okay, well, fair enough. And maybe there's something.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
It totally makes sense to me. But again, that's the area where I don't have experience, so I don't know. Like, to me, I was looking at him saying it's basically taking a positive mindset, an optimistic mindset to the outcome. So I didn't necessarily look at it as a negative, but that's where stuff that I don't. Maybe that is a problematic mindset. So I was just looking at it that way. I'm like, all right, he's trying to find the good and the bad, if that makes sense.
Well, I just try to relate it to myself, man. When I look at the positions I've been in, when I've been in situations to where I'm going against a fighter that's much better than me, and I'll know. I mean, like when you match up with somebody, like where you match good against them, where you match bad against them. Like there's been situations, and not so much as a professional, but as an amateur, it's like, man. If I remember when I fought in Michigan, I fought Scott Bickerstaff. He was a professional fighter. I was still an amateur, but there was no regulations at that time, so amateurs were allowed to fight pros. And I remember going into the fight like, hey, look. I'm 7-1 as an amateur. I'm going to fight this professional boxer, professional MMA fighter. My goal, if I can win, great, but I'll be very content with going to decision. And in the third round, I got cut above the eye, and the doctor stopped it. It wasn't hurt, it wasn't finished. It was just I had a cut above the eye. I didn't like the blood going in the eye. So after the fight, like, dude, I just went 3 rounds with a professional. I was content. I was content with losing because it showed me where I stack up against a pro at that time in my career. Now you look at Ian Garry. He loses against an 18-0, 18 finish, MMA fighter. Like maybe before the fight, like, I mean, obviously he wanted the win. He was trying for the finish in the 5th round. But when you have that mindset that, hey, look, I'm content with losing a decision here because it's going to show me where I am. I don't know, man. Again, I'm not putting Ian Garry down. I like Ian Garry. I think he has a bright future. I still think he become the UFC champion. But just to show his lead up and how he was acting and how he acted before the fight and how he acted after the fight, I think in his head, at one point or another, he decided if I lose by decision, that's still a win for me.
Fair enough. No, that's a great point. Okay, so now Ian Garry has taken the loss. I thought he did a tremendous job, regardless of given the circumstances. It was a great show. I know people were upset, maybe, I guess, or Dana White seemed not too stoked about the fact that there wasn't a finish, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was just absolutely incredible to watch both of their strategies play out, and I thought Ian Garry had a great amount of success. So I think he really showed his full dynamic game, both on the ground and standing, which was really fun. Now we're talking about what's next for Ian Garry, right? You said they want to build him. Man, I would love to see Ian Garry still fight Colby after this Colby fight. I just don't think it's going to happen because I think Colby is just vehemently refusing. I think the only way he would fight Ian Garry next is if the UFC says either you fight Ian Garry or you're cut or something like that, right? Like I think it'd have to be a hardcore, definitive, like you have to do this and you're not fighting anybody else. But assuming that doesn't happen, I see in the comments from Anakin, and now I know Western Mass Climber said, or somebody else said that he can't, he's like Gary or has already said on Ariel Helwani's show today, which I missed, that he's not fighting in London. But what do you think of Ian Garry versus Leon Edwards next, or is there somebody else you have in mind that you'd love to see him face off against?
Now, coming up against this young up-and-comer, to me, Ian Garry's still young. To me, Ian Garry's still up-and-coming. He only has 1 loss on his record. He lost to an undefeated guy that has 18 finishes. He's lost by a very close decision. I think, that, as I said this before in the show about this matchup, I like this matchup. I thought it was going to be a more exciting fight than what it was. But we just took one of the future stars that was undefeated and we gave him a loss. It just took away, in my opinion, a lot of his value. Because again, Ronda Rousey said it best during her reign. Being undefeated, that 0 on your record is the most important thing in MMA. Staying undefeated as long as you can is the most important thing in MMA. By putting 2 up-and-coming prospects together, we're knocking one of them off. And who knows? If Ian Garry somehow goes out and fights Leon and loses, now he's on a 2-fight losing streak. He just lost so much stock in himself, so much stock in the company. Now where do we go with it? And the more you lose at this level, the easier it is to lose. I think this was a huge mistake from the UFC making this matchup. Now, looking forward, Ian Garry stepped up. Nobody wanted to fight this guy. Ian Garry stepped up. I like Ian Garry. I always have. I didn't think he was going to win this fight, but I really like his personality. The UFC needs to do him a favor and give him an easy fight. Leon Edwards is not that easy fight. All right, Leon Edwards is a guy that can come out there and beat Ian Garry, giving him 2 losses. This is the fight that Ian Garry either needs to fight Joaquin Buckley or Colby Covington after this. All right. He needs a step down in competition. He just fought the best in the division. Why would you match up this guy against another guy that's the best in the division? Leon Edwards, former champ. Yeah, if he beats Leon Edwards, yeah, he's thrown right into title contention. But if he loses, now he's lost 2 in a row. Now what do you do with him?
Right.
Where does he go after 2 losses in a row? He can't beat the guy that couldn't beat the champ. If he loses to Leon Edwards, he can't beat Leon Edwards. Well, Leon Edwards lost to Bilal, so he's definitely not going to get a championship. I think, again, we need to talk about the Joaquin Buckley and the Colby Covington fight, and does he get the winner of that fight or does he get the loser? Because I think he can beat both guys in that fight.
Okay, well, as I said, man, I'm really hoping that they do match him up and force Colby's hand to fight him, because it'd be a great fight. I think Ian Garry's most likely going to win, and the buildup will be tremendous. It's going to boost him up so much, because at this point, Colby is so disliked in the UFC and by fans in general that finally beating him, stopping him, imagine finishing him, dude, that will just skyrocket his stock. So let's pray. Let's hope that the UFC makes this fight. I think it would be tremendous for Ian Garry and for the UFC and for fans. So let's go Ian Garry versus Colby Covington. Now let's real quick talk about Shavkat matching up against Bilal. Of course, like I do want to know your thoughts about when Bilal tried to go in and Joe Rogan.
I didn't see that. I didn't see it.
Oh my God. Bilal tries to go into the cage and to like square off against Shavkat, and UFC security stopped him because they didn't know who he was.
Oh, you know what? I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
I mean, hey, yo, respect to Bilal. Like, it is, I don't know. It's just kind of funny given all the circumstances of like what people say about Bilal. And then Joe Rogan's like, hey guys, they need to let him through. They don't know who the champ is. Like he said, I don't think he was trying to poke fun at Bilal, but he just said it as a truism. But yeah, how do you think these two match up? And I mean, do you have an early prediction, or do you feel pretty split 50-50 in terms of the outcome?
I think Bilal just has a better style to win this fight. You know, watching Ian Garry, who primarily has a striking base, take Shavkat down, I don't think Bilal is going to have a hard time taking him down. And unfortunately, I think I probably won't even watch the fight just because I just don't care to watch Bilal fight. I'm sure he's a great guy. He's a great fighter, but I don't like wasting my time watching boring fights, man. And I just think it'd be a really boring fight. I saw some holes in Shavkat's game that showed him human. And again, Ian Garry, to me, is a striker at heart. For him to come in and be able to take Shavkat down, take his back, put in a rear naked choke that was very close to finishing, I mean, that just showed me that he has holes in his game. And unfortunately, his holes are where Bilal's strengths are.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I actually enjoyed the Bilal versus Leon fight. I actually didn't mind it. I definitely want to watch it. I'm curious, but that's very interesting insight that you're picking Bilal. And okay, cool. That's good to know. Real quick before we move on, Western Mass Climber did have a comment. He says, I don't think Ian lost any stock. I think I kind of agree with you. If he does lose another fight, I get Justin's point, but
I'm not saying he did with this fight, but I mean, when you're undefeated, you make your shots. Well, now he's lost. He's not undefeated. He'll never be undefeated anymore. And you know what? Ronda Rousey said it best, and that's coming from her mouth. And obviously, she's done a lot more in the UFC than I have. She says when you lose that 0, it's you don't have that bargaining chip. You can't say I'm undefeated. You know, oh, you lost your last fight. And I'll tell you what, and I'm going to be more open about the UFC because obviously I'm not in the UFC anymore. And I'll be honest, when we first started our show, I was very hesitant on what I should say, what I could say, because I didn't want it to get back. But honestly, I don't give a fuck right now. The UFC doesn't give a fuck about their fighters. All right. They like, hey, you know what? You can get, oh, well, I went out there and I lost a tough decision. Well, Dana White didn't like the fight. He wasn't impressed by the fight. So you don't have that bargaining chip. Now you've lost. You know, I'm not saying he's lost all his stock. That's not what I'm saying. But it's definitely something where the UFC can and will say, well, you lost. Well, you lost. Well, you lost. You don't have that bargaining chip anymore. And again, I'm not saying he lost all his stock, but he's in a position now. If he loses 2 in a row, he's not going to get cut. But then what? Now what?
Right.
You know, if he goes against Leon Edwards and loses to a guy that couldn't beat Bilal, where does he get put in the rankings? He's going to be in like 7th, 8th, 9th. And now what do we do with him? Now we have to get him that match with Colby because the UFC is going to want him to get him to win. The guy is a genius on the mic. He's like, I'm not going to say he's Conor McGregor 2.0. There's no Conor McGregor. I don't care if you're Ian Garry. I don't care if you're there's no Conor McGregor. And people are comparing him. I think it's an unfair comparison because Conor is a master. Like there's only one other guy that I think is as good as Conor on the mic, and that's Chael Sonnen. And Chael Sonnen, the only reason I say Chael Sonnen is good on the mic is just because he's so outlandish. And he's very, very clever, and he's very, very smart. I think that Conor McGregor is a lot quicker, and he's a lot more witty. But with that being said, Ian Garry's great on the mic, but again, he's lost now, and he doesn't have. Again, I don't know. I want to explain this right because again, I'm not saying he's not worth anything. Of course, he's worth something, but having a loss on your record definitely affects it, and 2 losses could be detrimental.
Fair enough. Okay, Anakin says, give Gary to Brian battle. I know he's joking. That'd be pretty funny. Okay, let's move along to the main event. Kai Asakura versus Pantoja. People were really praising Pantoja, but Asakura started out the gate, flying knees, 2 of them. I think that both landed. I mean, not landed flush, but they landed. I was like, holy, dude, I thought Kai looked incredible until he didn't, until he kind of got caught in that position and was submitted. And I think that was what a lot of people were predicting was a submission from Pantoja. But Justin, give me your thoughts on the fight in terms of Kai Asakura's debut in the octagon, which also he's used to fighting, right, in a ring. I mean, I don't know how much that plays into the adjustment period. And he's thrown straight into a title shot. But yeah, what do you think of Kai Asakura?
You know, he came out kind of like just as we expected. I like this kid a lot. Unfortunately, he is no. Let me phrase this right. Fortunately for us, but unfortunate for him, this guy is a risk taker. He is going to go out on his shield every time. He's coming in guns blazing. Like you said, he threw 2 flying knees in that first round. He exposes himself. He leaves himself open a lot to get taken down. He leaves himself open a lot to get counterpunched. With that being said, he doesn't give a fuck, and I fucking love it.
Me too.
Dude, I love that shit. I love that shit. He took it to the champion. He didn't play back like, oh, I'm in the UFC now. I don't know what to do. Like, he's like, fuck this. This is my belt, and I'm coming for it. Unfortunately, he got submitted in the second round. But, dude, how can you not? Like, this guy's going to become a fan favorite. And I'll tell you what, there's a reason why the UFC signed him. There's a reason why the UFC put him in a title shot in his first fight, just because of his style, because of his aggression. There's too many guys that are playing it safe. You know, they're trying to grind out. There's too many guys. This guy is looking for the finish from the first bell to the last. Again, he got finished in the second round. But, again, he's reckless. He's fucking reckless. I love it. He's going out trying to knock guys out. And if he doesn't knock him out, maybe he gets caught. Maybe he gets taken down. Maybe he gets submitted. But he doesn't care. And I can really appreciate that. This guy is what the 125 pound needed. Yes. This guy is going to keep the 125 pound division alive and exciting because whether he's fighting for the title, whether he's fighting for contendership, he is going to come out like a bat out of hell and try to kill his opponent every time.
Moreover, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, moreover, his speed and the quality of his technique was just so like satisfying to watch. Just watching all his striking, watching the way that he pulled out that flying knee before you could even blink. So all of that stuff to me, just as you know, somebody who really loves to watch really good striking and really good Muay Thai and kickboxing, I absolutely loved it. I was blown away. I mean, did you feel equally impressed by his technique and his striking?
No, not at all. And I'll tell you why.
Oh.
I'll tell you why. He came from Ryzen. He came from an Asian company. What are Asian companies like Ryzen and One Kickboxing or One Championship known for? They are known for having the best strikers in the division, all right, or the best strikers in the world. I've watched guys go out there and fuck Demetrius Johnson up in One Championship from striking because Demetrius Johnson is such a gangster. He has done fights to where the first round is kickboxing, the second round is MMA, and the third round is kickboxing.
Crazy.
Like, can you imagine going out? All right, we're kickboxing. The coach be like, all right, get your game plan together. We're doing MMA this round. Like, that is just the most gangster thing ever. And to watch Demetrius Johnson, who in my opinion is one of the best 125 strikers in the history of the division, go out there and run away from guys and get outstruck in that kickboxing round. This is exactly what I expected out of Kai. I expected his kickboxing to be high level. Was I impressed by how high level it was? Absolutely, man. This guy's fast. Well, again, I was very, very satisfied with watching, but it's what I expected. You know, I expect these guys from One Championship, from Ryzen, to have world-class kickboxing, and Kai Asakura definitely does.
What did you think? Speaking of Demetrius Johnson, what did you think of Pantoja's call out? I mean, by the way, Demetrius responded on his channel. I saw it right after, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good." But what do you think?
Well, I think he said he just doesn't want to fight anymore, too, right?
Yeah, like he's retired. He's retired.
Yeah, I don't think, and fans are going to take this the wrong way. Demetrius Johnson is not afraid of Pantoja, Kai, or anybody. He's fought Henry Cejudo 3 or 4 times, and I know some fans are going to be like, "Oh yeah, he's scared. He's scared." Listen. Anybody that says he's scared is a fucking idiot, and MMA fans are all fucking idiots for the most part. And just because, again, it goes back to that John Jones. Demetrius Johnson's arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest. Some people will say he's the greatest. I don't think he is, but he's definitely in the top 3 for sure. And I mean, he might even be number 1 from a stat point. I think he had like 12 title defenses or something crazy like that. Like
11, I think.
11.
It's
Okay, 11.
check.
Even 11. If you have, hey, listen, the lightweight division, the longest streak they've ever had is 4. So imagine almost triple that. Defense, like, and against the best, you know, he's fought, you know, Henry Cejudo 3 times or 2 or 3 times. He fought Tim Elliott. He's fought, I mean, just the list goes on, man. And I'm only naming 2, but
you were right, by the way. It is 12. Sorry, I misspoke.
Like 12. And then, so for MMA fans, like, if he comes out and says he doesn't want to fight Pantoja, dude, fuck you guys, man. Like, I hope he doesn't get any flack for that.
No, he retired. He had a really emotional, I don't know if you saw, but he had a very emotional retirement speech. And no, he's not going to get any flack. But all right, cool. Well, Pantoja reigns at the top right now. I guess we'll see who goes against him next. But congratulations to Pantoja. That was a fun fight. Now we got to move on. Man, this was people are so mad about this fight. Ciryl Gane, and I feel bad. Like, I mean, I'll admit I'm such a big fan of Ciryl Gane, even though I know it was people are going nuts about it being a robbery. I mean, I don't know to what extent or how it compares to other fights that people, you know, disagree with the decision. I was just happy for Ciryl Gane to get the win. But yeah, I mean, what are your first thoughts? I don't know. What are your first thoughts?
You know, I'm so bummed because Volkov is such a dog, man, and I just don't think he gets the respect in that division. Feels like every time I see him fighting, he's always the underdog. They're using him as a stepping stone. As our prediction said, I thought Volkov was going to win this fight. I know Gane is super athletic. He's super strong. He's super explosive. But tell you what Volkov has that a lot of guys in the heavyweight division do not have is composure. Like this guy, I mean, his composure, he's always has great composure. You know, he always has great technique. He always takes the fight to his opponent. Unfortunately, you know, with all the hype behind Ciryl Gane and all his athleticism and explosion, you know, he just wasn't able to come out on top in this one. But man, I thought Volkov won the fight. I actually was very, very confident. I had some cash on it, I had some coin on it. I thought it was a lock. When I heard Ciryl Gane come out as the victor, it's just like, man, that's just how I run these days. But Volkov is a dog. He's going to be back. He constantly keeps beating guys that everyone Volkov's going to lose this fight, and then he wins. Volkov's going to lose this fight, then he wins. Although he loses this fight, I thought he won the fight. Dana White told him after the fight that he got fucked. He goes up to him, he's like, bro, you got fucked in that fight. And unfortunately, that's just what happens a lot, man. And everyone goes like, oh, well, he should finish fights then. It's like, dude, this guy's out there slinging leather, trying to knock guys out. Like, it's not. I hate it when people say, oh, well, you shouldn't let it go to the judges. Like, it's not like he played a passive game plan. Like, he was trying to fight. Both guys were fighting. It's just sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Now, just in Ciryl Gane's defense, and I don't know how you feel about me saying this, but Ciryl Gane, first of all, he very much was not happy with the performance. He actually left the cage I think he was actually upset that he got the win because he felt his performance was so bad. And how can you not respect that mindset and that, you know, where, like, imagine if you compare it with, not to hate on Paddy Pimblett, but when he got that close decision, he was like, no, I definitely won, and blah, blah, coming out, you know, screaming that, of course, he earned the decision. Ciryl Gane was like, I don't think I should. Well, he didn't say I don't think I should have won, but he's like, that was a terrible performance. He was unhappy, and he just owned it and admitted it, which I appreciated. But what about the fact he broke his toe on the first kick that he threw in round 1, continued to fight through, playing it off, fighting through the pain. You couldn't even see him limp until the very end of the fight. And then all the stuff he did on the ground. I know he went for that heel hook, which maybe was a flashback to the Francis Ngannou fight where he kind of lost that 5th round, partially because of that. So, but he was going hard in the submissions. He actually had some takedowns. I mean, do you give Ciryl a good amount of credit just in terms of how his game has progressed, or were you not impressed?
No, definitely, especially with his wrestling, man. You know, he's been focusing on his wrestling. Everyone's been talking about it. It really shows his evolution, man. His evolution as a fighter. With that being said, man, and I like Ciryl Gane. I know it sounds like a lot of times when we're talking about these guys, I talk shit about these guys. I'm not. I like Ciryl Gane. I think he's great for the division. With that being said, I try to call a spade, and Volkov, I thought, won that fight. Saw some impressive things from Ciryl Gane. You can tell that he's training in his grappling. You can tell he's training in his wrestling. But just because you're doing the right things doesn't mean you deserve to be the winner. And I thought Volkov deserved to be the winner in this fight.
Fair, and I think most people agreed with you. I hope that Ciryl Gane's foot heals quickly, and I hope he's able to come back soon. I would love to see him eventually. If John Jones does not take the Tom Aspinall fight, I'd love to see Ciryl Gane against Tom Aspinall. I think Ciryl could give Tom Aspinall actually a lot of problems, and especially seeing the evolution of his ground game, I think is a much more formidable opponent for Tom Aspinall, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I guess we'll have to see what happens as the negotiations play out. But it's very interesting. Okay, we got to move on because we got about 9 minutes left, and then Justin and I have to jump on a call for this weekend with Fusion Fight League. So next, moving on to a fight from the prelims, the featured fight in the prelims, Dominick Reyes versus Anthony Smith. I want to hear your thoughts, but let me give you mine very quickly first. I thought Dominick Reyes looked incredible. I actually watched the fight twice. And his striking he had just laser pinpoint accuracy. Now, I know Anthony Smith was going through some things, and there was at one point he seemed to just drop his hands and take the strikes. And then after he took a barrage of strikes, he stuck his tongue out at Dominick Reyes. But I mean, it was very, very one-sided. And man, that finishing sequence when Anthony Smith just held onto his leg and would not let go. And I don't know, man, he took an insane. I couldn't believe they actually let the fight go on as long as they did in the second round. The ref did, but he was just taking so many elbows to the head at close proximity until it was finally called off. I think with like 14 seconds left in the second round. But massive congrats to Dominick Reyes. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of it because it was just a pure beating. What was your takeaway? What was your thoughts?
Dominick Reyes looked like a savage. He looked like the original Dominick Reyes that took John Jones to decision. Dominick Reyes was laser focused for this fight. His striking was precision. Anthony Smith, on the other hand, unfortunately, I'm a huge Anthony Smith man, Lionheart. He's as tough as a coffin nail. Unfortunately, toughness doesn't always win you fights, man. And I know it was an emotional retirement for him. It was an emotional fight for him. You know, Anthony Smith, we thought we saw a resurgence of him, a couple fights ago. He loses his last fight, comes in here, loses this fight. I mean, MMA, the thing with the sport of MMA and the thing with, professional sports in general, all these sports don't give a fuck about you. The UFC doesn't give a fuck about you. The sport doesn't give a fuck about you. Like, MMA just chews us up and eventually it's going to spit us out. And unfortunately, that's where Anthony Smith is at. He's being spit out by MMA right now. I don't think there's any more resurgence from him, unfortunately. I think his body is too battered. He's been in too many wars. He's taken way too much damage through the years. He's taken way too many injuries. Mentally, he probably feels that he can still compete just like I do. But unfortunately, we have to come to a time and a place and realize that our body just can't keep up anymore. And I think that's what Anthony Smith is slowly but surely realizing, especially with another loss in a row. And I tell you what, as somebody that's still going through that feeling right now that didn't compete at the top of the world, it's emotionally draining. It's sad because you have to realize Anthony Smith's identity is a fighter. Although he's an incredible commentator, I'm sure he's an incredible coach. He's a lot of things. He's probably an incredible family man. He's an incredible friend. But at the end of the day, his identity to himself is a fighter. And unfortunately, when you're phasing out of not being a fighter anymore, and again, I'm hanging on. The reason I can talk so freely about this is because I'm going through it right now. Like, I still want to compete. And when I'm training, I feel great. When I'm training, I feel great. And then I get in there and it's like, I sometimes find myself not trying to win, but not trying to lose, or trying not to lose instead of trying to win. And it's just that my reaction, even if it's a quarter second slower, like that's still the difference between getting knocked out and not getting knocked out. And, unfortunately, when your identity is something for your whole life and then just one day you're just not anymore, it's emotionally taxing. It's emotionally draining. It's very sad to say the least.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing because it's like that's happening at a point where I feel like in other if I look at myself, for example, I feel like I'm just starting to find myself at 35, 36, 37, even now in my 40s, you're starting to figure yourself out, get comfortable with yourself. So it's like you have to go through this transition when you're now really coming into your own in a lot of ways. Maybe your athletic prime may not be there, but mentally, emotionally, I think you're really stabilized. So it must be a very weird position for you. You're now transitioning into, I think, like, now you're finding yourself, you're coming into your own with commentating and what we're doing here. But I think similarly with Anthony Smith, he's got this other tremendous talent and ability. He's one of my favorite people to listen to. I mentioned this on Saturday night. If you watch him on the Michael Bisping podcast, even more so than on the desk, I like him the best on the podcast where he can talk freely and have conversations with Michael Bisping. And he provides this incredible, very highly intellectual side of the fight game contrast. I mean, Michael Bisping's, you know, he knows his stuff, but he's obviously got more of the comedy, the personality. But like, I love the balance of those two, and you can see the respect between them. So he, you know, Michael Bisping can be tough on people sometimes when they're on his show, but you can see he gives so much deference and respect to Anthony Smith. So he's got this amazing career, and whatever he chooses, whether that was an official retirement, he said probably, he didn't say 100%, but whether he retires or not, let's say if he does retire, we wish him the best. And it was a privilege to get to watch him, but like, yo, I'm going to continue to watch him on the commentating and as well with Michael Bisping. So yeah, man, he's got a tremendous mind and a huge career ahead of him. But as you mentioned, I'm sure it must be a difficult thing identity wise. So there you go. That was essentially what we wanted to talk about for this main card. Now, there's a couple pieces of news that we're going to touch on very quickly. The last two items are both having to do with people that, Justin, you know very well and that you train with at Extreme Couture. So first of all, what's your reaction to the announcement, Strickland versus Du Plessis, UFC 312 in Australia? What's your initial reaction to this announcement?
Well, seeing that I just talked to Sean about, I don't know, an hour ago, nobody's surprised. Nobody in the gym is surprised. This is the fight that was supposed to happen. This was the fight that they always said was going to happen. Sean is even surprised that people are surprised, to be honest. Once he fought and, you know, he beat Paulo Costa, you know, he already said the fight in his mind, whether it was announced to him or not, he knew the fight was going to happen, and he doesn't understand why everyone's so surprised. So that was kind of my mindset to it. Sean already said that he was next in line, you know, a month ago when I heard him talking about it by the lockers. And then this morning, he's, you know, in the gym training as he always is, comes over to my cardio kickboxing class, shoots the shit. And he just doesn't understand why everyone's so surprised.
I think we just got hyped up by Du Plessis coming out and saying he wanted Khamzat, and Khamzat's amazing performance, and it is what it is. It's not like, I don't know. You know me. I'm a huge Khamzat fan. I wanted to see that fight. And obviously, you know I like Strickland, but it's just the prospect of seeing somebody come up, just kind of like we're excited to see Shavkat finally get his shot at the title. You know, Strickland's a former champ. He's a legend, but yeah, to see Khamzat and watch that rise was especially exciting and intriguing. But it is what it is. I mean, this is going to be a cool fight. So Mad Pross, I just got one thing to say. Yo, I don't know if you talked to Sean about this. Why is he being so hard on Khamzat on social media? He's just going off on him.
I have no idea, but I hope I will in the future. I'm going to ask Sean to do an interview for the 10-7, maybe like a 5-minute interview of how he feels about this upcoming matchup and why he's, you know, so tight on Shavkat. I really think he'll do it for, Khamzat.
Yeah.
I think he will do it for me, but we'll find out.
That'd be amazing. All right, last thing, because we got to go shortly. Like I said, we're going to talk about Fusion Fight League and the logistics for this weekend. Check it out on the Triller app. And guys, if you're new to the show and you haven't subscribed yet, we are 3 subs away from hitting 500 subs, which is a big milestone for us. So make sure to click subscribe if you do want to. But last thing, Merab, dude. Merab's been going crazy. And I know you train with him and I know you like him, but I just want to get your opinion. Like, what's going on? He's again almost attacked another fan on Friday, I think, or Saturday. Saturday at the UFC event. He's going off on Umar, just screaming at him, saying he's not a man. I mean, like, I don't know. What do you make of this type of behavior? And do you think this says anything about maybe his head not being in the right place leading up to UFC 311 in January?
Yeah, man. You know, Merab is a very calm, cool-headed guy. I know he's kind of like a goofball at some things, but to see him get this fired up and yell at the other guys and argue with them is just so uncharacteristic of him that it really catches me off guard. That says he's going through some emotional distress right now. Maybe he doesn't feel he's getting the respect he deserves. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it, but I think that's what it's coming down to. Everyone's saying, oh, Umar's going to kill you, and you're ducking this guy, and you're ducking that guy. And I think it's really starting to get to him. It's really starting to bother him. And obviously, you can tell by his reaction at the presser. I've never seen Merab do that. That's not him. And if you guys think that he's an asshole or this guy's one of the nicest guys. Like, I told you that I had my son – my son, he's 15 now. He was like 12 or 13 years old. Merab and Aljo were kind of sitting by themselves in front of the T-Mobile Arena. We went there, and I bet my son $100 that he wouldn't go up to both of these guys and tell them that he thinks that he could out-wrestle both of them. And I just remember Aljamain, because they didn't know who Ben was. Aljamain looks at Ben, and he's like, how the hell old are you, boy? and Merab and Aljo just start dying laughing, and I run over there and, I was like, I'm just joking, it's my son. But just to go to show you, like, how playful, like, Merab was, oh, yo, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, they just started laughing, like, who is this kid? Like, Like, that just goes to show the kind of personality these guys have. So to see him react the way he did really tells me that this pressure, it's not the pressure. I think it's the lack of respect that's really starting to bother him.
Fair enough. Last thing I'll say, because we got to jump off right now. Last thing I'll say, as crazy as it is or whatever's happening, it is building the fight. Yo, a lot of people are talking about this matchup. So for better or for worse, it's getting a lot of buzz. Guys, we got to roll. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Once again, click subscribe. If you haven't done so, you got to make sure to click that like button. Oh, welcome, Roland Denny. That is a new follower, a new person watching the show. And he said he went to Aljo, high school at Aljo.
He's probably as cool in high school. He's probably as cool in high school as he is now, man. And I'm telling you what, Aljamain Sterling, as I've said before, it's somebody that I look to. We had the same neck surgery. So he was somebody that I confided to a lot during that time in my life.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.
See you.